on the taboo against knowing who you are. Imagine yourself standing before a mirror in the early morning light. But instead of seeing your familiar reflection, you notice something unsettling. The boundaries where your body ends and the room begins seem strangely unclear. Your skin, which you've always trusted as the definitive border of yourself, appears oddly permeable, as if the warm air and soft light were somehow part of you too. You blink and the sensation fades, but a question lingers. What if the person you've always believed yourself to be is nothing more than an elaborate story you've been telling yourself since childhood? This peculiar moment of boundary confusion points toward one of the most profound questions Alan Watts explored throughout his philosophical work. He suggested that our most fundamental assumptions about who and what we are might be based on a kind of collective illusion, a taboo against recognizing our true nature. The idea that you exist as a separate, isolated being, contained entirely within the envelope of your skin, may be one of the most pervasive and limiting beliefs of our time. In an age where isolation and disconnection seem to define much of modern experience, examining this taboo becomes not just philosophically interesting, but practically urgent. At the heart of Watts's insight lies what he called the skin-encapsulated ego, a vivid metaphor for the way most of us experience selfhood. You've likely lived your entire life with the unquestioned assumption that you are a separate entity, distinct from everything around you. Your thoughts, emotions, and sensations all seem to occur within the boundaries of your physical body, creating what feels like an obvious and natural division between self and world. Yet Watts suggests this division is far more artificial than it appears. Consider how your sense of self actually forms. You didn't arrive in the world with a pre-existing identity badge or an innate knowledge of your separateness. Instead, your understanding of who you are emerged gradually through countless interactions with parents, teachers, and society at large. You learn to say, I and me, and mine, before you could walk steadily, absorbing a worldview that treats individual identity as both fundamental and unquestionable. This process of learning to see yourself as separate isn't natural development, but cultural conditioning so thorough it becomes invisible. The language you use to think about yourself reinforces this illusion daily. When you say, I have a body, you inadvertently create a split between some essential self that possesses and a physical form that is possessed. Yet where exactly is this I that supposedly has a body? When you look carefully, you find thoughts arising and passing away, sensations appearing and dissolving, emotions flowing and shifting, but no central controller or owner of these experiences. The very grammar of selfhood, with its subjects and objects, creates artificial divisions in what might be a seamless flow of experience. This grammatical trap extends far beyond personal identity into how you relate to the natural world. You speak of your environment as if it were something external to you, forgetting that every breath you take draws that environment directly into your body, and every exhalation returns part of you to the world around you. The oxygen in your bloodstream, the water in your cells, the minerals in your bones, all originated beyond the supposed boundary of your skin and will eventually return there. From this biological perspective, the rigid separation between self and world begins to look like a useful fiction rather than a fundamental truth. Watts drew extensively on Eastern philosophical traditions that offer alternative models of selfhood, traditions largely unfamiliar to Western thinking. In these frameworks, individual identity appears more like a temporary pattern in an ongoing flow rather than a fixed entity. Imagine the way a whirlpool forms in a stream. The whirlpool has a distinct shape and behavior. You can point to it and name it, yet it's clearly not separate from the water that creates it. It's a dynamic pattern of activity within the larger system, entirely dependent on that system for its existence. The implications of recognizing this interconnectedness extend into practical territory, especially in addressing the peculiar forms of suffering that seem endemic to modern life. Much of contemporary anxiety and depression appears rooted in a sense of fundamental isolation, the feeling that you're somehow cut off from meaningful connection with others and with life itself. If Watts is correct that this isolation is based on a misunderstanding of your actual nature, then recognizing your deeper interconnectedness isn't just philosophically interesting, but potentially therapeutic. Yet this recognition brings its own challenges in a culture organized around individual achievement and competition. How do you navigate a world structured around separate selves when you begin to see through the illusion of separation? How do you maintain necessary practical boundaries while remaining open to deeper connection? These questions become particularly pressing in our digital age, where technology simultaneously connects us to vast networks of information and relationship, while often leaving us feeling more isolated than ever. The taboo what's identified isn't maintained by external authorities, but by the momentum of conditioned thinking itself. You police your own boundaries, maintaining the fiction of separation, because questioning it feels dangerous to your sense of identity. Yet what might you discover if you allowed those boundaries to soften occasionally? What if the fear of losing yourself in recognizing your interconnectedness is itself part of the illusion, and what you actually find is not the loss of identity, but the discovery of a deeper, more authentic sense of who you are? Perhaps the most radical insight in Watts's exploration is that you don't need to become something different to realize your interconnected nature. You don't need special practices or altered states of consciousness, though these might help. Instead, you need only to see clearly what's already happening. Right now, as you sit reading these words, air moves in and out of your lungs, connecting you with the atmospheric ocean that surrounds the planet. Light from distant stars reaches your eyes, making vision possible. The ground beneath you spins through space at tremendous speed, carrying you along with forests and cities and billions of other beings through the cosmos. The key insight you might carry forward from this exploration is that separation and connection aren't opposites, but complementary aspects of a larger truth. You can maintain your individual identity and practical boundaries, while recognizing that these boundaries are more flexible and permeable than you usually assume. This recognition doesn't diminish your uniqueness, but places it in a richer context, like seeing your life as one distinct melody in a vast cosmic symphony. But this leaves you with a profound question to carry into your daily experience. If the boundaries you've assumed to define you are more fluid than they appear, how might this change the way you relate to the challenges and opportunities that arise in your life? How might recognizing your fundamental interconnectedness with everything around you transform not just how you see yourself, but how you engage with the world? As you settle into these questions, allow yourself to rest in the possibility that you might be both more and less than you've imagined. More in the sense that your true nature extends beyond the narrow confines of personal identity into the grand web of existence itself. Less in the sense that the heavy responsibility of maintaining a separate self might not be yours to carry alone. In this gentle recognition, you might find not the loss of who you are, but the discovery of who you've always been, flowing like water through the beautiful, ever-changing patterns of experience, connected to everything, separate from nothing, exactly as you are.